Okie dokie, collage work. These I have glued down. And they are just pictures I pulled out of magazines that are, and also from some flyers from my trip, since I don't have my printed pictures either. What I wanted to talk about was glue. Turns out I didn't have any glue either, so I went to 7-Eleven and I found these two options. Both are fine, but I'm finding, because I wanted to experiment with both, that this, as I suspected, is going to be your better bet. It doesn't seem to curve the paper quite as much, maybe, as this one does, but it's up to you. One of the things I wanted to talk about is how you're applying the glue. This stuff comes right out of the bottle pretty thick, right? You can use it that thick and it will, it'll be fine, but you don't want to use very much of it. It's possible to water it down, but I'm realizing that if you do that, the paper is going to get that much wetter and wrinkle even more, so maybe not. I only have brushes here at home that I want to keep as paint brushes and not as glue brushes. So my option for putting the glue down, first of all, to get it out where I can get at it, yay, Ritz Cracker Box, have folded this up so it doesn't go too far, and a small piece of said Cracker Box as my spreading tool, right? So as I have laid this, I've laid this out a couple times already and taken pictures, right? So I know that I like what I'm doing. You want to make sure, and let me get a little bit closer, that you're not putting this on too thick. If you put it on so thick that it's going to squeeze out the edges, you're in trouble. And be thinking about, as you go, if you're planning on having some things go over or under this one over here, your pieces, you want to be really thoughtful about what order you glue things down, right? Don't just glue everything down in, like, glue one thing and then something on top of it. You might have pieces that are kind of weaving a little bit, right? So that's some option here. And this, I might say, is a wipe off, like a water resistant thing. So make sure you're working on something you can clean up easily, and or a piece of newspaper. If your glue squeezes out like this, go ahead and smooth that right over the edge, right? This white glue can go right over the top, and actually going over the top is a great thing to do, particularly to get those edges to stay down. So again, as you're working, be thinking about, oops, I missed a piece, here we go. Be thinking about how fragments of things might be interesting. How the same image, you can see how this piece here is going right up the page. It's the same picture, but I didn't leave it all as one picture, right? And I'm not going to line it up 100% either. And I'm going to interweave this other thing that I've got going this way to keep things interesting, right? And I'm kind of grid-like. I'm a little linear. Part of that's me, and part of it might be like if you were relating something to something that had a grid-like quality, that might not be a bad idea. But you can go back and forth with adding the glue to the back of the piece that you're gluing down, or the back, like back here, and getting lots. Remember, we watched Bob Burridge be like really crazy with his glue. Well, he was using matte medium, which is more like a thinner paint. So you don't actually need a ton, and the more you have, the more likely your paper underneath is going to curve as it is drying. So be a little careful about that. There we go. That one, a little more glue. And you can see how, like, you're going to go through quite a bit of glue. The other thing that you might find, if you are using things that are shiny prints, like this is glossy magazine stuff, it might be a little hard to draw on top of that. It's actually, if you are using the white glue, it will create a surface that's a little bit easier to use a pencil on if you want to do that. So we can go right over the top of all of this with a thin layer, right? Put it on, kind of squeeze it down of glue, and make sure everything's staying where you want it. Now, remember that as you're going, you may want to include some other things that aren't photographs and leave white space. You're going to be painting on top of this too and drawing. So maybe I want to include a little bit. I have some washi paper, and I'm a fan of the torn edge, particularly if you're going to actually see that edge. If we have, I have left some of the straight lines so that we understand that like that's continuing down. But frequently you're going to want it to like blend and be something that's not quite so linear, right? And maybe I'm just going to lay that kind of over the top of some of that there. That looks kind of interesting. And kind of keep going with that. The other thing you might consider, at some point I'm going to weave in this color green, which won't be in stark contrast to some of it, but it will be to like other parts. My bicycle is green. It's almost this color green, and that's what I was riding for this trip. So for me, this is going to represent part of the movement and the bicycle trip, along with the little fragments of like maps of, I cut the maps of Aomori up in to include as well. So that's sort of where this is going. So don't forget something like string, and if you have something like tissue paper, right? This is just from like wrapping gifts and stuff. You can keep it nice and smooth, or you could like wrinkle it up and get some texture going, and then that texture in large or small fragments can go over your images, and you'll see how that has a little bit of transparency to it. It'll also let you do some drawing over the top that way. And where did I put? Right in front of me. This also is going to be something where you put that down and then lay this on top of it. It's fairly thin, right? It soaks a little bit through, and then you can go over the top of that with a little bit more, but be a little bit careful and delicate, and we're not really going to see it very much, except where it covers the photos. But then, exposure down. If you take a look here, you have this really interesting texture that's going to do interesting things with paint or drawing over the top of that. So consider what you're doing. Again, watch out for those straight edges. I'm really wishing that I had torn that. Maybe I'll just smudge it over. Oh, problem solved. No longer a straight line. Think about that. Also think about how pieces of things can continue. So I don't know how many waterfalls I saw on this trip. So my thought is that I've got this one picture, and then I'm going to use drawing and painting to like continue it down and like have it flow through and around the piece. So think about how you can tie the parts together with drawing, with string, with painting, with something over the top. And those are some things I wanted you guys to consider, right? That it's fragments of things and it's ideas of things. And we'll start from there. Okay.